Here's Navarro on the run. Navarro's going to keep it. Navarro for 6. Touchdown, Bobcat.
I feel I had a hard time staying in my own lane.
Oh my goodness! Red Murdoch, pick 6.
Harvath inside the 30 to 20. Blake Harvath will score.
And Mendoza takes a big hit. He never saw it coming. Trey White got in there.
There's his man, Rucker. And nobody's going to catch him. Goodbye.
Intercepted.
Tom Reed, skipper, touchdown. Telly again, why not? A step forward and make it 2 for Telly.
Quarterback keeper showing off the speed, steps on the gas, untouched.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive, where we bring you the G5 college football coverage you love each and every week. I am Luke, joined by my co-host, Justice. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. It helps with all of that stuff that they did not teach me in public school, algorithms. Other than like calculus, I think I learned about some stuff, but I think they're different things. I don't know public school. Anyways, tonight we will bring you up to speed on the news around the G5, review what went down in that all-important, hard-hitting Army-Navy game, and then the LA Bowl. Then we'll take a look and set our sights to the 9 bowl games, plus dive into Tulane and JMU and their first-round game in the college football playoffs. But first, let's jump into our players of the week for, I guess, what we'll call Week 16. All right. The G5 Hive Offensive Player of the Week for Week 16 is none other than the Navy slot back Eli Heidenreich. Eli rushed for 28 yards and had a huge fumble recovery and caught 6 balls for 72 yards, including what would turn out to be the game-winning touchdown as Navy takes the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Congratulations, Eli.
The G5 Hive Defensive Player of the Week for Week 16 is Army defensive end Jack Boozum. Jack had 4 tackles, 2 solos, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and was a disruptive force for that Black Knights defense. Congratulations, Jack.
Well, Justice, I think it's time for us to buckle up, dive right into some things. There was obviously the game that we're going to talk about. There was one game last week that was lived up to the hype, one that
did not.
It was over pretty early in that second quarter there.
Yeah.
But before we get to those games, those recaps, looking forward to our bowl games, let's start with what the Swarm needs to know, our news and notes.
This week we're going to start off against all coaching news, some financial news at the end. We'll discuss the transfer portal much later in the off season once we kind of know where guys are ending up. But let's start off with some coaching news. We mentioned this last week that East Carolina lost their defensive coordinator, and that is looking like they're going to lose their offensive coordinator as well. And they have offensive coordinator John David Baker is off to Ole Miss. So ECU is in the market for an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. JMU hires Robert Bala as their defensive coordinator. He was formerly the co-defensive coordinator at Florida. Middle Tennessee has fired offensive coordinator Bodie Reeder. We talked about this last week with another move. I forget which coach it was, but this is the move before the ultimate move where the head coach gets fired, right? We were kind of shocked that they brought Derek Mason back. And as you can see, I'm sure that stipulation came with you got to let some people go, and Bodie Reeder was one of those guys. Toledo hires Mike Jacobs as their head coach from Mercer. He comes over from Mercer. He was 94-23 in his time as a head coach, and he has no losing seasons. Washington State hires Kirby Moore as their head coach. He is the brother of Kellen Moore and a Missouri offensive coordinator. I like this hire. I don't know about you, Luke, but like to me, this is one of the best hires for a G5 so far this offseason. I'm shocked that Kirby hasn't gotten looks before now.
I feel like he was a high thought after, like a highly thought of coordinator last coaching cycle, and then it really seemed to be dead. Like I didn't really hear his name in anything this year.
Like I feel like if Missouri had lost Eli Drinkwitz somewhere, that they would have offered that job to Kirby Moore. That's what I feel like they would have done. Obviously, that didn't happen. But yeah, he moves over to Washington State, and I personally I think this is an upgrade for Washington State. I think Kirby Moore is going to do much better there than what they have with Jimmy Rogers. Jimmy Rogers moved over to Iowa State, but I think in my opinion, Washington State upgraded. They got the better end of the deal, and I think he's going to do great things there for the Cougars. Oregon State hires Lance Guidry as their defensive coordinator. He was a defensive coordinator at Miami, Marshall, and Western Kentucky. Most recently, he was an analyst on the LSU staff. Sticking with Oregon State, they hire Mitch Dalen as their offensive coordinator, and he was an assistant offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Alabama prior to coming to Oregon State. As we speculated last week, Southern Miss has promoted offensive coordinator and interim head coach Blake Anderson to the permanent position as head coach. He's a former head coach at Utah State and Arkansas State. Coastal Carolina has hired Ryan Beard as their next head coach. Ryan Beard was the head coach at Missouri State, led the Bears to bowl eligibility and a bowl game in their first year in FBS. Had a great transition, a great year, moving up to FBS and in Conference USA. Buffalo lets offensive coordinator Dave Patton go, and they hired Tony Tokers as their next OC. He is formerly the Florida State quarterbacks coach. Marshall has hired Brad Lambert as their defensive coordinator. That's his third stint with Marshall. He was a defensive coordinator at Marshall in 2020. This past year, he's a senior defensive analyst for Kentucky. Jacksonville State offensive coordinator Clint Trickett has been hired to be the quarterbacks coach at Arkansas. Georgia Southern's hired Mike Mutz as their defensive coordinator. He was a defensive coordinator for Stephen F. Austin the last 3 seasons, where they had some really, really great seasons there in Texas. All right, moving on to some financial news. USF Board of Trustees has approved a loan of $22.5 million to athletics. They had previously approved a $16 million transfer to fully fund revenue sharing. This speaks loud and clear that South Florida is all in on sports. They got the on-campus stadium coming soon, and they're putting themselves in a great spot in the G5, right? Like, a great spot in terms of if a Power 4 comes looking for another team, right? I would say them in Memphis, maybe Boise, got to be like the 3 front runners in terms of possibly getting a P4 invite. I think that's what South Florida is trying to position themselves for. And obviously that on-campus stadium is going to be awesome there in Tampa.
You think about like the flashy head coaching hire, and I was thinking about this of he recruits Florida pretty well, so that's going to help. But you're probably not going to take these 4 and 5 stars that are going to your Power 4 schools. You might get a couple here or there, but I was thinking, some schools I'm thinking of Georgia State, how you saw an influx of guys from Georgia come. It's okay, maybe there's some guys that maybe aren't Ohio State worthy on that team that come to USF and help out there. But then also, I would assume he's got a pretty good relationship with Ryan Day. And we've seen a couple P4 teams almost seem like they favor certain G5 teams over the other, where it's almost like a feeder program. It's almost like this little mini JUCO of like, hey, Wire's like, I think it's like a whole light was like getting all of these guys from Kentucky or something. It was something weird. And it's like, you know, what if they like built something where it's like, hey, you come here, we develop you, and you go to Ohio State. Like, if I'm a kid and maybe I can't get to Ohio State now, but like you pitch that to me, like that could be like some sort of pitch going there. And then, like you said, all the stuff that's coming onto campus, making all the money that they're putting into, they could really build something big here.
Yeah, and that's they're certainly investing in the money and the resources to build show they're serious about athletics and, like I said, position themselves potentially for a P4 invite at some point in the near future. The last piece of news, which I hadn't heard about this until Wyoming. I saw someone, a Wyoming beat reporter, had tweeted about it, but UNLV is adding an $11 million corporate sponsor patch to their uniforms. They're just waiting for the NCAA to give the green light. I'm sure that others other than UNLV will do something very similar as soon as the NCAA gives the green light for this. You know, last year we saw them give the green light for sponsor logos on the fields. And this kind of just feels like a next step, if you will.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? Reminds me a lot of women's basketball in the WNBA. You know, Justice, there's been a lot of talk around G5 football and the WNBA, and just another reason you got the NCAA going to approve this. It's going to be just like everyone kind of made fun of the WNBA, whatever it was, 4 or 5, 6 years back, when they're like, oh, we're going to get Mayo Clinic on the Minnesota Lynx jerseys and this and that. And now you see all these the NBA follow, and college football is going to follow. So they were out on the forefront. Maybe the G5, maybe the G5 is out on the forefront in this college football playoffs when we get to that later. I don't know. Just trying to connect the dots between all the WNBA and G5 football talk that I've been seeing out there.
Yeah. That was our good friend Bud Elliott, man. Like we talked about it offline, but I don't really know what's going on with him. Don't know if he's just trying to get clicks or he really believes some of the things he says. But man, like he's made some pretty bad comparisons. What Luke's talking about, if you don't know, he basically said that the G5 is the WNBA and the Power 4 is the NBA, which is just a terrible comparison. And I think I posted on our X account, hey, like this like not even close. Like you got to do better, man. And then I think he said G League versus NBA or something. But yeah, it's there's been a lot of discourse. Ever since Tulane and JMU both got in the college football playoffs, and people saying the G5 don't deserve it, blah 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 blah. And that's just a bunch of nonsense, man. Like those guys played within the set of rules that are set forth. They did what they needed to do to get there, and they made it. And anything, people, it's just sour grapes, right? Like I'm sorry, like that Duke is the ACC champion, but that's the way your rules are set up. Like we said last week, the rules will be changed. I have no doubt about it. And maybe we won't see 2 G5s in the playoffs again. But maybe. I mean, I think if the ACC and the Big 12 is smart, they'll wise up and start voting with the G5 because if they get rid of the G5, I can tell you the ACC and the Big 12 are next. And so hopefully they'll wise up and realize, hey, if they can do this to them, they're going to do it to us at some point too. But anyway, enough about that.
All right. Well, should we get right into our games in review?
Yep, let's go to the Commander-in-Chief trophy that was up for grabs Saturday.
All right, so Saturday games, we've got Army, Navy, the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Honestly, this is a great game. Just hard-hitting throughout. It reminded me of, like, the Ravens defense. Like, it was cold, hard-hitting, and I think the Ravens defense, not the now Ravens defense, but, like, the 2000s.
The Ray Lewis.
Yeah, like, it was Edry. It was just hard-hitting. And to me, it felt like...
For me, it'd be like the 85 Bears.
To me, it felt like Navy had the edge, but like as the game went on longer and in the first half, I started getting the feeling, oh, well, maybe like Army's might just pull this one out. And when Navy fumbled with 27 seconds left in the first half, Army scores 3 that put them up 13-7. I was like, I still think Navy is going to pull this one out. I just don't know how, because they weren't getting the touchdown. Army wasn't getting the touchdowns. They're just getting field goals. And then in the third, when Horvath threw the interception and Army returned it for a touchdown, I was like, all right, like, that's game over. But Justin Weaver was called down as he caught the ball with a knee on the ground. Army would be able to only score 3. And that was kind of like the story of the game. It was like these missed opportunities, just getting the 3 instead of the touchdown. But now I kind of felt like Army could get the W here. They may, but like Cale Helms would roll out. I can't remember at what point this was in the third quarter, but he was out on the run, I think going out to the right, and he threw the ball on the run, which he did like 2 or 3 times out of like, I don't know, the 10 passes that they had. And Philip Hamilton would come up with a big interception. Navy then marches down the field, and it was 2nd and goal from the Army 1, and Horvath would get the ball punched out. And what we talked about earlier in our players of the game, Eli Heidenreich would recover the ball at the Army 8. But something that I don't think anybody was really talking about, but it was a hustle play that I want to just point out. And that was Alex Texa, who, again, I just want to put a shine on a light on him. I can't remember who picked the ball up from Army, but they kind of had it, and he like pokes the ball loose to make it go to the 8-yard line, and that's where Eli recovers it. So like without Alex Texa like hustle play there, like maybe Army pulls this one out. Just a few plays later, Navy would face a critical 4th down, and it was 4th and goal from the 8, and Horvath would find who else but Navy's all-time leading receiver and our offensive player of the week, Eli Heidenreich, for 6. The extra point would make it 17-6 Navy. Army had a big holding penalty that put them behind the sticks there, 2nd and 20 from the Navy 15. And because they could not move the ball, they're going to have to punt it back to Navy. Then Navy does what they do best, run the ball, eat the clock, but it wouldn't be without some drama as Horvath fumbles again. Caleb Fortner popped the ball up. It went straight up in the air. Horvath, though, catches it midair, dives for the sticks. At the end of the play, Army would have the ball, and it's ruled Army recovered the fumble, but like many times during this entire game, replay would help get the call correct, and Horvath was called down just short of the line to gain. Then on 4th and 1, following the 2-minute timeout, Alex Texa would get 2 yards to help Navy secure their 10th win of the season and their 2nd straight win over Army to win the Commander-in-Chief trophy.
It was a tight game, close game. I think we talked about it last week. Like, I think if I remember correctly, Navy was favored by like 6.5. I think I said, I wouldn't take that. I would take Army and the points because these games are always tight, man. Like last year, you did get like somewhat of a blowout, man. But like, I feel like 9 times out of 10, these two teams are going to play each other super tough. Obviously, they're so familiar with each other and each other's offense, and they're always low scoring. They're always seem to be in the teens, and that's kind of what played out this week for the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, and Navy wins it, I believe, for the second year in a row.
And I thought it was going to be a little bit more high scoring, but the thing that I honestly don't think enough people are talking about, or at least I haven't seen it come up on my timelines, but Donald Trump's coin flip at the beginning was atrocious. That was the worst coin flip. He just puts it in his hand and there's no flip. It's just toss it straight up. I don't know. It was a bad coin flip. No one wants to talk about it. I haven't seen it, but it could have been a better coin toss. All right. Let's move on over to the LA Bowl Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern. 9-4 Boise State, 8-4 Washington. Ooh,
it was ugly, man. It was ugly from the beginning.
So Washington had just scored a touchdown while Boise had this corner blitz and then safety miscommunication. I can't remember who it was, but he was on the right side. He follows. It was like he was playing man and the other guy was playing zone.
Denzel Boston wide open.
Yeah, 78-yard touchdown catch. And then with about 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, I just felt it was over, and they just scored the touchdown, and then Boise went for it on 4th and 2 at the Washington 44. They didn't convert. I was like, if you're going for it at this point, this juncture, when it's somewhat close, okay, you feel like things aren't going well, and it just resonated through the television screen. The Huskies win in a blowout, 38-10. The things that stood out to me was quarterback play. Damon Williams outplayed Madison and Max Cutforth. If you didn't watch the game, Max Cutforth would replace Madison in the second half. Maddox threw 2 interceptions. Max threw 3. I mean, the fourth quarter was an interception fest. I think there was 5 possessions, one touchdowns, 3 interceptions, or I can't remember what it was, but bad fourth quarter. But yeah, the Madison came out with a boot on his right foot, I think it was, and I don't know. They say he was playing hurt. He played the conference championship, got him through that. I'm not gonna question somebody's toughness, but it was rough out there. I don't even think Cage Casey would have helped a whole bunch in that game, as they're missing one of their offensive linemen who didn't even travel to the game.
Yeah, he's going to be drafted. NFL draft, opted out.
And then another thing that stood out to me was just how it felt like the yards were gained. I had to go back and sift through the stats because it was just interesting to see. So Washington seemed to me to be getting these chunk yards after chunk yards, and Boise was almost like Army and Navy. Okay, I need 3 yards, and I need 4 yards, and I need 3 yards, and just seemed to take them a lot longer to travel 10 yards than it did Washington. But turns out that was just perception on when the chunk yards came. So I went into the play-by-play, and I thought it was just interesting. So Boise had 12 plays of 10-plus yards, but 8 of those 12 plays came when the game was well in hand. Now Washington, on the other hand, they had 14 big plays of 10-plus yards, so only 2 more than Boise, but 10 of those 14 came prior to the game being out of hand. So the whole reason the game got out of hand was because of what Washington was doing with those chunk plays there. Obviously, those plays would lead to a 24-3 halftime lead, and maybe why I had that feeling. But when I broke it down, I'm like, they're kind of even, only 2 more plays, but it was just how and when they happened. But yeah, this was a rough game. I could have gone to bed at halftime and called it good.
Absolutely. We got the one good game with Army Navy, and then we had this absolute disaster of a game. Was, like you said, just over from the beginning. Boise State, we'll see what they can do next year. They've talked about having some serious quarterback competition. I'm assuming maybe they're going to bring someone in. I don't know, but in the post Ashton Genty year was not good not kind to the Broncos.
All right, that does it for our wrap up of the bowls and the games that happened in the past. We talked about this game just because of how things time up with when we do our podcast, our everything live and whatnot. We talked about the game that is tomorrow or today if you're listening to it. It's the Salute to Veterans Bowl at 9 p.m. Eastern. You got 8-5 Troy versus 8-5 Jacksonville State.
Yeah, we talked about it. We previewed it last week. One thing we talked about last week was the spread. I believe at that time, Troy was favored by 4 or 4.5. And we both were like, that's absolutely insane. Makes no sense. And it would seem that the bettors agree with us because that line has dropped. Troy's still the favorite, but it's only 1.5 now. So yeah, I still think if you bet, hopefully you got the Jacksonville State when it was you're getting the 4 points, but I think Jacksonville State wins this game outright. But yeah, we got some news in terms of transfer portal and guys that aren't going to play in the game. So we just wanted to kind of update folks on that.
Yeah, so Troy opt-outs cornerback Colino Levine is opting out. And then there's some transfer portal guys. So running back Tay Meadows, defensive end DJ Jackson, and then offensive line Paul Bowling.
We know for sure Meadows and Bowling aren't going to play. That was Josh Boutwell tweeted that out. I don't know for sure about DJ Jackson.
And then Troy injuries. You've got left tackle Elijah Prather. I mean, he hasn't really been out there a lot. The last time he played was in week 7. And then their right tackle, Gardner Leglano. He last played in week 3. And then Goose Crowder, he left the Sun Belt Championship with an injury, was seen on crutches. If he's not able to go, it'll be Tucker Kilcrease, who's obviously played several games this year, and he would be under center there. Jacksonville.
The expectation is that Goose is going to play. That's what Josh Boutwell, the Troy beat reporter, has said earlier this week. So I guess he was at practice. So the assumption is that Goose will play. Obviously, it could be a situation where he gets hurt again and we see Tucker, or they play both of them. Who knows?
And then for Jacksonville State, offensive tackle Reggie Jackson's in the transfer portal, and then some injuries. Left guard Adrian Gum, he missed the last game along with cornerback Tyron Taylor, who missed their last game. And then defensive tackle Juwan Campbell. He played in week 11, so he missed the last 2 weeks of the season there. But, yeah, those are kind of up to date on who's in the transfer portal, some injuries. So, yeah, maybe if you're playing some of that ESPN Bowl Mania stuff and you're maybe curious as to maybe who might win a game because people are sitting out. Definitely for Troy, I think if you're starting Kilcrease, you don't have Meadows, you don't have Bowling. That's definitely a downgrade.
All right, you ready to get into the bowl previews here?
Yep.
All right. First up, we got the Cure Bowl. I will be there. G5 Hive will be there. Got bowl credentials approved last week, so I fly out tomorrow. Be there for the ODU versus South Florida game in Orlando. That's Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Eastern. The spread, I think it's come down. It was, I want to say 7 or 7.5. It's now.
It is now 3.
Yeah, it started off 7.5, and then when the Byron Brown news came out is when it dropped. Over under 53.5. Let's look at when when South Florida is on offense, ODU's on defense. These are the projected starters. keep in mind, Byron Brown's not playing. Gaston Moore will be the starter there at quarterback for South Florida. But the South Florida offense, pretty prolific. They're ranked 10th in the nation in rushing offense, 225.4 yards per game. 18th in passing offense, 276.3 yards per game. Second in scoring offense, averaging 43 points per game. And they give up, they're 27th in terms of giving up sacks. They're allowing 1.42 sacks per game. Some key things to know about the USF offense. That staff is gone, right? The whole offensive staff is gone. I believe their tight ends coach is the one calling the plays here for South Florida. And no Byron Brown. That's huge, right? Gaston Moore is their backup quarterback. He is not a dual threat. He is a pocket passer. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see. You got a different style of quarterback. You got the tight end coach calling the plays on offense. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see what happens. I mean, typically they run the Tennessee offense as well, similar to what ODU does. Wide split offense, run the ball, get the ball out to the receivers. I think the key matchup for when South Florida is on offense is those two receivers, Jeremiah Coger, Keyshawn Singleton. They're both 6'3", maybe 6'4", two tall guys. It'd be, so I think that's the challenge for Old Dominion for that defense. Speaking of the Old Dominion defense, they're ranked 64th against the rush, giving up 147.2 yards per game. 23rd against the pass, 184 yards per game. 21st in scoring defense, only giving up 19.3 points per game. And they're the 12th best team in terms of sacking the quarterback, averaging 2.92 sacks per game. Obviously, with Gaston Moore back there versus Byron Brown, that I think going to lend itself to potentially more sacks. It's going to be real interesting to see what this offense looks like with no Byron Brown. As a college football fan, I'm disappointed there won't be a Byron Brown. But as a Old Dominion fan, I don't know. I'm kind of happy, I guess, right, that we don't have to face Byron Brown because, man, he is an absolute stud. He is so dynamic. Speaking of Byron, like I said, he's the only opt-out for South Florida, and Gaston Moore will get that start. But the word is Byron Brown is going to be assisting as a coach, if you will. He's not calling plays, etc., but he hasn't decided what his next move is. So, he decided that, him and I guess the coaching staff there decided maybe it's his best interest to not play. But he is assisting. He is going to have a headset on, serve as an assistant coach there for the Bulls.
I think that's really just an odd thing in general. Like, is this a glimpse into his future? Like what? Like, or are you just trying to stay around the program? Like if you're still undecided and you're not going to play, like, why have a headset on? Like, I don't know. It's just kind of like
this is kind of strange. I mean, my guess is like that was. I mean, I don't know. Maybe South Florida said, "Hey, I mean, I think the chances of him returning to South Florida are pretty slim, right? I don't know that he's going to follow Alex Golesh to Auburn. I think a lot of that will depend on what Deuce Knight does. But, I think he's just, like to Brett's point in the chat, he's trying to be a good teammate. Yeah, I mean, that's, he doesn't want to play, doesn't want to get hurt, but he doesn't want to, like, totally leave the team hanging, so to speak. On the injury front, South Florida, you got wide receiver Chaz Nimrod last played in week 7, and wide receiver Christian Neptune last played in week 12. For Old Dominion, cornerback Botros Alessandro last played in week 10. I do expect Botros to play. Practice was closed, but I got to go and do interviews last Monday after practice, and I saw Botros there stretching out. So I'm assuming he probably practiced that day. So my assumption or my expectation is that we will see Botros Alessandro at cornerback, and that's huge for Old Dominion to get there. Probably one of their their number one corner, if you will, back for a game going against Singleton and Koger, two very talented wide receivers. You want to tell us about? We talked about some about the coaching changes. You want to give us some more details there, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, USF has this 3-point advantage, and it's just kind of interesting because you got Alex Golish heading to Auburn. He's going to take OC Joel Gordon with him, and so they're not going to be out there during the bowl season. And you would assume that there's probably some other key members of that offensive staff that's going to go with them.
Yeah, the tight ends coach, I think, is the one calling the plays.
And then you've got the defensive line coach, Kevin Patrick. He's going to be the interim following the hire of Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline. Obviously, he's going to take over head coaching next season. So with these coaching changes, there's obviously this higher risk of some more Bulls opt-outs. I think we're probably being Wednesday, we've probably hit the number that we're going to. Maybe there's a couple guys that they haven't expressed. Cage Casey was kind of that name for Boise State that happened. They were supposed to have I'm trying to remember the timing of it. They were supposed to have an open practice, and then it was closed, and then it was just canceled for the media members, and then you find out Cage Casey wasn't there, didn't travel, all this stuff. I don't know, but I think that is interesting that all of that stuff is happening, and South Florida is still favored by 3. I think that's a lot going on, and like you said, the quarterback style is different. This ODU defense still pretty good. Obviously, South Florida's defense not too shabby themselves, but I think you got a pretty good backup quarterback in there. Why don't we break down the tape on the other side?
So, moving over to ODU offense, South Florida defense, like Luke said, no Colton Joseph like the graphic shows. It's going to be Quinn Henicle. Quinn Henicle, Colton Joseph, very similar style quarterbacks, both dual threats. Matter of fact, in his last start last year against Arkansas State, Quinn Henicle ran for 200 yards. So
I was thinking back, it was that game against Arkansas State, and I think it might have been his first possession. I think maybe Arkansas State had it first, and he ran it either 90 or 99 yards or something on an option read. I was like, all right. So you're remembering correctly, but he ended up with 200 yards rushing in the game. He's a different style runner than Colton. Colton's, I would say, more physical, maybe more shifty. Quinn is a lot faster. He's definitely a lot faster than Colton. I would say he's probably a more accurate passer, but maybe his arm isn't quite as strong as Colton's on the deep ball. That's kind of like how I would, compare the two. But nonetheless, the offense doesn't really have to change with Quinn on board. We look at the ODU offense. They are the 7th ranked rushing offense in the country, averaging 236.9 yards per game. Passing, they are 70th, averaging 223.8 yards per game. Scoring, 29th, averaging 32.7 yards per game. This offensive line's played phenomenal all year. They are the 19th best offensive line in terms of giving up sacks, only giving up 1.33 sacks per game. And I believe they are either one of 7 or one of 8 teams in the FBS that started the same offensive line all year. And you're going to have that same offensive line again for this bowl game. Looking at the South Florida defense, when I think about the South Florida defense, and then I look at these numbers, they don't really jive in my head because I feel like the South Florida defense is more talented than what necessarily these numbers show. But according to the numbers, they're the 47th ranked rush defense, giving up 134.4 yards per game, 120th against the pass, 252.4 yards per game, 55th in scoring, 23.3 points per game, and they're 36th in sacks, averaging 2.4 sacks per game. And
I think,
just as you said, that their defense in regards to stopping the pass isn't that great, being at 120, and then you got safety Taven Ward and cornerback James Chenault. They've both missed the last 2 weeks of the season, I think it was. So you're obviously not going to have any help there. So you could see that defense might be more susceptible if they're not able to go in this game.
Yeah, for me, I think the key to this game, when I look at these two teams, when ODU's on offense, South Florida on defense, is that defensive line for South Florida, in particular the two guys in the middle, Travion Mitchell and Josh Seliskar. Those guys are absolute beasts. And so I think, it's going to be a tall task for the Old Dominion offensive line, to kind of keep those two guys off of Quinn Hemical, keep them from being disruptive. I think if they can do that, ODU can find success. But if they're not able to effectively block Mitchell and Seliskar, it'd be a long, long day. And then both linebackers for South Florida, Mac Harris, All-American, Jalen Schuler, both really talented guys. And I would say their best corner should be available, and that's Jonas DeClona. On the ODU side, the players to know, obviously, starting quarterback Quinn Henical. You got running back Devin Roche, and then you got a trio of wide receivers, all three super talented guys, and Trey Brown III, Ja'Cory Thomas, and Naeem Abdul-Rahim Gladding. To Luke's point, maybe DeClona is going to be able to stop one of those guys, but then you got the other two that could have some big games. The only opt-out, as we talked about earlier, is Colton Joseph for Old Dominion. And it's unfortunate that we're not going to get, Colton Joseph versus Byron Brown, what could be like a really cool, matchup, two of the best G5 teams in the 20, in this season. But, on the bright side, those two guys are the only opt-outs. And so should make for a good game. I personally think I give the advantage to ODU just because, the quarterback is very similar style. They don't really have to change the offense at all. Whereas, Gaston Moore, not a dual threat. They lose their entire offensive staff for the most part. You got new coaches doing new things. And so for those reasons, I give the edge to Old Dominion. But I think it should be a good game. And tune in. We'll be there. I'll try to post some video or post some pictures, etc., while I'm there in the press box. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah,
so,
should be a good time. The thing that I'm interested to see if they go with that hurry up Tennessee offense with how good this defense is, and get a couple sacks. It could be a rout early if they keep up that pace of play and they're not able to move and get first downs. Byron Brown was our G5 Hive Offensive Player of the Year. And I think if, those in the ESPN communities, like in those bigger forums, they didn't have him in the G5 as their Player of the Year, I think you're going to see like what life would have been like without him this year. Because obviously, it's just a different style of football.
all right, you ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on over to the 68 Ventures Bowl, which is taking place Wednesday, December 17th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We've got what is this?
Louisiana Raging Cajuns versus the Delaware Blue Hens.
Oh, did I not even say the names? Man, I'm just all flustered. Yeah, Louisiana against Delaware. The line is Louisiana -3. Over under set at 61.5. Ooh, I kind of like Delaware in this one. But let's break down the numbers first, and then we can revisit that.
All right, so let's Delaware on offense, Louisiana on defense. Delaware, 118th ranked rushing offense, only averaging 115.9 yards per game, but the 6th ranked passing offense, averaging 302.2 yards a game. They're 48th in scoring, averaging 29.8 points per game, and they're 85th in sacks allowed, giving up just over 2 sacks a game. Looking at that Louisiana defense, both teams, the Delaware rushing offense and the Louisiana rushing defense, both ranked 118th. Not a strong suit for either team. Passing, Louisiana is ranked 87th, averaging 228.1 yards per game. Scoring, 105th, giving up 30 points per game. And sacks, they're 95th, only getting 1.75 sacks per game. I mean, Delaware wants to throw the ball, right? That's what they've done all year. They got two talented receivers, Kyrie Duplessis, wide receiver Jake Thaw, Nick Minicucci, the man, leading this Fighting Blue Hens offense. Louisiana does get some help though in that defensive backfield, right?
They get Skipper back there.
They get Tyree Skipper back. Tyree Skipper, if you don't recall, he was suspended after the Texas State game for the rest of the year. However, the Sun Belt did reinstate Tyree Skipper for this bowl game, so they do get him back. Other key players for Louisiana: linebacker Jaden Duggar. He was our Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. And then in that defensive backfield, you got Jalen Clark, Tyree Skipper at safety. Freshman was on our all-freshman team, Brent Gordon Jr. And then if you're looking for the guy to get pressure, that's going to come from a defensive end, Jordan Lawson. But look for Delaware to sling it around. That's kind of what they've done all year. Nick Minicucci, is a dual threat guy.
But he's going to run it. He's going to run it. You got injuries for the Delaware side. You got Joe Silver at running back. He played in the finale, but didn't play very much. Hopefully they get offensive guard Patrick Shupp back in this one to help them out. But honestly, when you look at offense, defense for both teams, relatively clean slate. Like this could be one of the true games of like starting teams, full allotment of players going up against each other on each side. I guess maybe the one question mark would be Louisiana quarterback. Does Lunch Winfield play? I mean, he got hurt, but I'm pretty sure he came back in that game. So like I would anticipate he's there. What kind of show can Lunch put on with his legs, and then can he link up there with Shelton Sampson, former LSU wide receiver?
Yeah, speaking of this Louisiana offense, they're ranked 29th in rushing, averaging 89.8 yards per game, 124th passing, only 156.2 yards per game, 74th scoring, 27.1 points per game. Looking at that Delaware defense, 89th against the rush, giving up 164 yards per game, and 115th against the pass, giving up 246.8 yards per game. And to your point, Lunch Winfield at quarterback, if he does get nicked up, then we'll see Walker Howard. But everything I've seen points to Lunch Winfield is going to be available. He's going to play in this game, and it's going to be a contrast of styles, right? You got Delaware slinging the ball around. Louisiana is going to be running the ball, whether it's with Lunch Winfield or running back Bill Davis. To what, like Luke said earlier, when they do pass it, look for wide receiver Shelton Sampson. He's been their number one receiver and a big weapon for them since returning from injury a couple weeks ago.
Now, Justice, when they do run the ball, which they will a lot, I'm going to guess that Lunch and Bill are going to be going towards that right side. And they're going to try to steer clear of Gavin Mole there. And also, they're going to be without their left tackle, Bryant Williams, who's opted out. He's in the transfer portal. So he's like, you've got this good linebacker here on Delaware's team, and you're missing your left tackle. Let's go to the other side.
Yeah. That's a great point. Gavin Mole's one of the guys to kind of look out for on that Delaware defense, along with safety KT Say and cornerback Nate Evans. Guess we talked about the injury to Lunch Winfield, and then Cooper Fordham, their center, missed their season finale. So we'll see if he's able to play in this game for Louisiana. From a betting perspective, for me, I think I just avoid this game. I don't know, man. I can see it going either way. I think it's going to be a fun, exciting game. It could be high scoring. Maybe that's the play, is to take the over. I just don't know if like Louisiana style is going to let them score that many points. It's going to keep Delaware's offense off the field. So that does concern me a little bit, but nonetheless, I think it's going to be an entertaining game. Like I said, contrast styles. Louisiana running, Delaware slinging it around.
And hopefully it doesn't come down to special teams. Delaware's had an up and down year when it comes to the kicking game. Yes. But I think it's you got one team likes to pass the ball, one team likes to run the ball. We'll see how that goes. But let's move on over to the Xbox Bowl. We've got that on Thursday, December 18th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Missouri State at Arkansas State. This one is Arkansas State favored by 1.5. Over-under set at 54.5. You've got some key injuries for Arkansas State is going to be left guard Tristan Smith. He was on our 2020 players quite often. He last played in week 10, but he is a guy that you're going to definitely want guarding Jalen Rayner. Missouri State injuries, you've got Ryan Williams there on the interior and Mitchell Toney. They last played in week 12. And then there'll be missing edge DJ Wesolak and safety JJ O'Neal. So when you're looking at this here, Missouri State, you're losing pretty much there that right side of the line, and then one of your good safeties. While Arkansas State, hey, are we going to have Tristan Smith there? Hopefully he's able to be back. And I guess you are for sure losing the edge in Wesolak and
that's huge
safety
for them.
and O'Neal.
He's their pass rusher.
I guess I don't know if Williams and Toney will be able to play, but we will see. They played in week 12.
And then the other big loss we talked about earlier, head coach Ryan Beard is off to Coastal Carolina. So they lose. Missouri State loses their coach as well. I don't remember who's going to be the interim. I don't know if it's going to be the OC Petrino or whoever the DC is there at Missouri State. But
I just think the Arkansas State being favored by 1.5 is too low, given all the things that Missouri State
given losing the coach and some of the opt-outs. But let's talk about Arkansas State on offense. 102nd rushing offense, 127 yards a game. 35th passing offense, 257. 90th scoring, averaging 24.4 points per game. Missouri State on defense, kind of middle of the road to lower end. 84th in rushing, 75th in passing, 89th in scoring. Jalen Rayner, Kenyon Clay are the two guys in the backfield. Jalen Rayner, dual threat guy, can get it done with his arms and his legs. His favorite target is wide receiver Corey Rucker, all-time leading receiver there at Arkansas State. But they also got Chauncey Cobb in the slot, and then Hunter Summers, another big target out wide for them. Players to know on that Missouri State defensive linebacker Kanye Young and cornerback Thomas Anderson. Like we said, that loss of DJ Wesolak, that's huge because he's their top pass rusher. I'm with you. I think Arkansas State, the offense is going to have a field day with this defense. And losing your coach, losing some of your top players on the defensive side anyway, not going to be a good thing. But hey, Missouri State had a fine season just to get the bowl eligibility, right? Their first season in FBS, a winning season. So regardless of the outcome of this game, still a successful year for the Missouri State Bears. Moving over
I'm really excited about this Arkansas State offense because Jalen Rayner has more years of eligibility left. I don't see him necessarily transferring or going anywhere. Corey Ruckers will be off to the NFL, would be my guess. So when they get to the end zone and the red zone area, they like to work the middle. And Chauncey Cobb, he's had a fumbling problem the last couple of games, but I think you're going to see him a lot there at the beginning. And then I'm kind of excited for Hunter Summers. It's kind of like a name. I'll be excited to see if he does anything in this game because Corey Ruckers is his last game or whatnot. But Hunter Summers is a name I'm watching for next year to be kind of take over that Corey Ruckers spot and be Jalen Raynor's main hookup there for next year. So I'm kind of curious if they get the ball rolling a little bit in this game.
Moving over to the Missouri State offense, key players to look out for. You got quarterback Jacob Clark, running back and friend of the show, Shamari Lawrence. Wide receivers, you got Dash, Luke, and Jamari Robinson. On the Arkansas State defense, you got Ethan Hassler on that defensive line. He's the guy creating that pressure. Linebacker Aaron Alexander and safety A.J. McGee. Arkansas State defensively, not good. Ranked 107th against the rush, 99th against the pass. Missouri State, not necessarily a great rushing team, ranked 113th, but they are the 22nd ranked passing offense, averaging 273.9 yards per game. So this game, could turn into a bit of a shootout. On the offensive side, Missouri State has some losses too that could hurt. 2 offensive linemen. Cash Hudson, their starting center, and then Ibu Badiki and Abugwu. He was an all-conference guy for us on that offensive line. He's in the portal, and then freshman wide receiver Tristan Gardner, who was on our all-freshman team. All 3 of those guys are sitting out. Jacob Clark's a good quarterback, but losing those 2 offensive linemen is not good. Again, this game could have some shootout potential, but I like Arkansas State getting the win and laying the points in the Xbox Bowl.
All right, let's head on over to the Myrtle Beach Bowl, Friday, December 19th, 11 a.m. I'm kind of excited for this one. We've got Kennesaw State, Western Michigan. Western Michigan favored by 3.5 points, over under set at 49.5. But honestly, I think the wrong team's favored in this one. I've liked what Western Michigan has done this season. They're gonna run the ball, but I'm gonna tell you, man, I like Kennesaw State's offense. And if you have not had the chance to get to watch Amari Odom at quarterback, he's fun to watch. He's fun to watch. He'll make some bonehead mistakes, no doubt. It will happen, but he's a big boy. He somewhat kind of reminds me of Braylon Braxton a little bit in kind of how he plays and whatnot, bigger quarterback. But if he's able to, put it all together, it's magical. I'm trying to remember which week it was, but he had, 5 passing touchdowns. And maybe 2 weeks before that, he got pulled at the half because he had 3 interceptions. I don't know which one shows up, but Mario Odom, he's fun to watch. I'm excited. I'm kind of interested. We'll obviously get into the players here, but does Nadeem Tucker play in this game? I haven't heard anything. I assume he is, but he's probably an NFL draft pick. And does he opt out?
And the thing I like about this game is you got 2 G5 conference champs, right? You got the Conference USA champs against the MAC champ. Like to see that. We saw that. We had that set up for 4 of the G5. All but Boise made the college football playoffs last year, but the other 4 we had set up until Marshall opted out. We had the conference champs versus conference champs. So I do like to see that matchup. This is going to be a contrast of styles. Western Michigan, they want to run the ball on offense. They're the 22nd ranked rushing offense, averaging 196.6 yards per game, 129th passing offense. Pretty clear what they want to do. Kennesaw State, though, not good against the run. Ranked 102nd, giving up 8.5 yards per game. The key players, the major players for Western Michigan offense is Brock Lowry. He's a runner. He'll throw it, but like he's a runner first and foremost. And then you got running back Jalen Buckley, who's had big games down the stretch for the Broncos. On defense for Kennesaw, you got defensive end Elijah Hill, true freshman, was on our all-freshman team, 10 sacks on the year. Linebacker Barron Hobson and cornerback Jericho Washington Jr. Even though he is in the portal, he is gonna play in the game. So it's kind of like the game earlier we were talking about with I forget who. I'm drawing a blank, but it's a contrast styles. You got the running offense of Western Michigan,
Jacksonville State, Troy.
Yes, and then you got the wide open spread and hoot offense. For Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State injuries, got safety Antonio Stevens, and then Garland Binyard. He won't play. He's out. He I think it was his ACL, I believe, in week 9. So they will be without him.
The thing that it's really crazy because like Western Michigan has been so good at running the ball, but they seem to forget it each week. And they happen to squeak by at different points because it's like the first half they try to pass. It's like they want to be balanced. They want to do this 50-50 thing. And then they get to halftime and like, guys, I think we should run the ball. And then they pass like 3 times in the second half and they run it down people's throats. And usually that third quarter, especially the last like 3-4 games, I feel like it was, they just like there's like 2 possessions in the entire third quarter, one by the other team and then one by Western Michigan. They just like eat up like 8 or 9 minutes of that clock. So I think the key to this game is going to be if Western Michigan decides to try to do that balanced 50-50 approach. That's where you talked about how Kennesaw State isn't too great against the run, and they're pretty good against the pass. If they're able to create some turnovers or at least get some 3 and outs and get on top, I think that might be too – you can't go into the halftime down and then eat up 8 or 9 minutes of the clock and score a touchdown and then expect to win later. So I would say if Western Michigan doesn't commit to just like, let's run the ball right away, I think they're going to be in trouble.
Well, let's move over to the Kennesaw State offense, Western Michigan defense. That Western Michigan defense has been a strength all year. As far as we know, everyone's playing for Western Michigan. Kennesaw State on offense, 69th ranked against a rushing offense, 50th passing offense, 65th scoring. But that Western Michigan defense is stingy. They're 33rd against the run, 18th against the pass, 14th in scoring, and they're the 6th best team in terms of getting sacks, almost getting 3 sacks per game. A lot of that starts with the NCAA leading sack man, and that's Edge Nadame Tucker. As far as we know, he will play. The other guy on defense to know for Western Michigan is safety Tate Halleck. Kennesaw State, obviously, we've talked about Amari Odom, dual threat guy, explosive, electric. He's quite a quarterback there for Kennesaw State. Running back, you got Coleman Bennett. And Coleman Bennett, good running back. He's he can bust out the big play, catching the ball as well. I believe it was a game earlier this year. We saw him take one to the house, on a screen pass. And then outside, you got wide receiver Gabriel Binyard, leading receiver for Kennesaw State. On the other side, you got Christian Moss. Both of those guys, talented. Amari Odom, just electric on offense. So I'm interested to kind of see what this Western Michigan defense, how it does against this Veer and Hoot offense for Kennesaw State, because the Western Michigan defense has been lights out. I do think if Kennesaw State can get a lead, I don't know if Western Michigan is built to come back, right? They are very much like a triple option team in that regard, right? They're not You know, they're not, you know, they don't have much of a passing game, not super explosive. So, you know, if Kennesaw State can get out to a lead, it could be ugly. But yeah, I think the key to this game is how this defense does against this offense. Defense has been so dominant all year. I don't know that, you know, especially in MAC play, that they've seen an offense quite as good as what Kennesaw State has.
I think Kennesaw State, if you can get to 24 points, you got to feel pretty good.
Yep.
In this one. All right, let's move on over to the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl, also on Friday, December 19th, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We've got Memphis at UNC.
NC State.
At NC State. Wow, not even close. North Carolina State favored by 4.5 points. Over under set at 58.5. Tell me about the key players, Justice. Tell me about, how do these teams stack up?
All right, NC State on offense. Players to know: quarterback C.J. Bailey, running back Hollywood Smothers, tight end Justin Jolie, and wide receiver Terrell Anderson. This NC State offense pretty balanced. 78 rushing offense, 48 passing offense, 45th scoring, averaging 30.2 points per game. CJ Bailey, dual threat guy, but he's definitely wants to pass first. I would say Justin Jolie is his favorite target, and then Hollywood Smothers, a great running back, fast. He's electric. He can break the big play. The other thing to look out for is fourth and short, third and short, or goal line situations. NC State will put freshman quarterback Will Wilson in there, and he's really just a battering ram running back. Have not seen him throw a pass yet this year, but yeah, to Brett's point, he is a problem in the short yard situation. The dude is built, he is stout, and they will use him in the short yardage to run the ball, whether it's short yardage from 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, whatever, or in goal line situations. So that could be a problem for this Memphis defense. Speaking of the Memphis defense, they're ranked 44th against the rush, 84th against the pass. Players to know for that Memphis defense: you got defensive end William Whitlow Jr., linebacker Sam Brumfield, and then that defensive back, you got safety Kamari Wilson and cornerback Duke Cooper. To me, this game has the makings of another shootout, right? I don't think either of these teams are necessarily known for their defensive prowess. And they both got great offenses that can score lots of points, and I think that's what we're going to see in this game.
And when you're looking at injuries, like NC State on offense, pretty healthy. Defense for Memphis, pretty healthy. So you're going to get kind of best on best. I was curious coming into this game, is CJ Bailey going to go into the transfer portal? What's Jolie going to do? What's Dylan Smothers going to do? It seems like they're all going to be there. So
yeah, I heard CJ Bailey is playing for sure. I tried to find out about Justin Jolie to see. I didn't see anything that said he wasn't playing. Obviously, he's going to be NFL draft prospect, so he could sit out for the draft. I haven't seen anything to this point that says that Jolie's not going to play, so I assume he is.
And I feel like you almost have the exact same team on offense for Memphis. It's a lot of the same. It looks a lot of the same. You've got Brendan Lewis at quarterback. You got running back tandem of Sutton Smith and Greg DeRosier Jr. together, almost for your Dylan Smothers type. And then you've got Cortez Braham, which took them a little bit. Nevada transfer coming in with Brendan Lewis took maybe 4 weeks to kind of sync up. And then that tandem looked pretty good. Us in the baseball world, the battery looked pretty good there between those two. But what do the stats say, Justice?
Yeah, this Memphis offense has been really good. 35th ranked in the rush, 51st in the pass, 19th scoring offense, averaging 34.6 yards per game. It's NC State defense, nothing special. 49th against the rush, but 134th against the pass. Not good. And 92nd in terms of scoring, giving up 28.8 points per game. Luke ran down the key players to know on the offensive side for Memphis. On the defensive side for NC State, it's their two linebackers, Sean Brown, Caden Fordham. Those are kind of the two I would say best players on defense for NC State. But I mean, I don't know the defense is. You're going to see a whole lot of defense. Maybe see some turnovers, but I think like this game has shootout written all over it.
I think I don't know. I think Memphis has a chance to pull this one out. NC State favored by 4.5. Over under set at 58.5. I think if I'm going to take one, I'm going to take the over in the points. For whatever reason it is, like when North Carolina State plays at home, I just feel like they're just tougher to beat. Obviously, this one ain't at home. This one's over in Raymond James Field there in Tampa. So I think it depends on what the mindset is for the Tigers coming into this. Obviously, a disappointing season for them, but I think they want to end on a high note. I think
they will be without Ryan Silverfield. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's going to have a huge impact on this game, but it could have some.
So yeah, mentioning that, interesting though, the DB coach Reggie Howard is going to be the interim coach for the bowl game. Now that Charles Huff from Southern Miss is going to be at the helm. I'm sure he'll be out on the sidelines talking to reporters, doing a lot of that stuff during the game. But yeah, I think I would take Memphis in the points, but if I were to bet on one thing, I'm going to probably do the over.
Yeah, I agree. I think the over is the play.
All right. Well, let's take a little break from, I would say, maybe the traditional bowl games. Let's talk college football playoffs. Round 1, Saturday, December 20th. We've got number 11, Tulane, number 6, Ole Miss. We want to talk about coaching changes. I mean, this is a coaching change bowl here in the playoffs.
Yes.
I guess I'll talk a little bit about some key players that I'm excited to see matchup wise here. Starting with Ole Miss on offense against that Tulane defense, and you've got Trinidad Chambliss, who's been the talk of the town. Is he going to be at AT&T, Verizon? Where is he transferring to? No one knows. His commercial. Kewan Lacey, been a guy that kind of came, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but I don't think anybody saw the season that Kewan Lacey had this year coming out of him this year. Wide receiver Harrison Wallace, Deuce Alexander, Caden Lee, that trio. But what will this offense look like without the main man there as head coach, with Lane Kiffin taking the job at LSU? Obviously, it's not going to be looking like the same. You got defensive coordinator Pete Golding, who's going to take over as a head coach. Offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss, I think, was allowed to stay with the team, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if you saw the wording in the contract at LSU, but essentially LSU is going to pay Lane Kiffin money if Ole Miss wins games.
They're gonna pay his bonuses that he would have gotten.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, this is an incentive. So like, hey, you can go there. So I'm not too worried about Ole Miss and maybe what they would look like offensively, defensively, because he's gonna like, hey, maybe want that money type thing. But what do the numbers say for Ole Miss? I guess Tulane on the defensive side, I'm looking there at Santana Hopper. I'm looking there at the line, and then Sam Howard at linebacker, and then safety Jack Chinshu as one of those guys.
And we failed to mention this is a rematch. These two teams played in the regular season. I believe Ole Miss won by 35. So hopefully that game gave them some familiarity, and something they can work with, and they can make this a more competitive game on Saturday. But looking at the numbers, Ole Miss on offense, just explosive. They're the third ranked passing offense, averaging 309.6 yards per game. And unfortunately for Tulane, that's the worst part of their defense. They're ranked 124th, giving up 255.2 yards per game. Tulane's good against the rush, 30th. But that passing defense has not been good for Tulane. Hopefully they learn some things that they can build upon as they take on Ole Miss for the second time this year. I'm not too optimistic. I just don't know that even if the Tulane defense is up to task, I'm not confident that the Tulane offense is going to be able to score enough points on Ole Miss to kind of keep this game from getting out of hand. Personally, I hope that's not the case, but that's just I struggle to see an outcome much different than the previous meeting. Moving over to Tulane on offense, Ole Miss on defense. Tulane pretty balanced on offense, 55th against 55th rushing offense, 57th passing offense. Offensive line has been good though in terms of giving up sacks. Sixth best offense in that regard, only giving up 0.77 sacks per game. Ole Miss defense 69th against the run, 20th against the pass, and 24th scoring defense, only giving up 20.1 points per game. Key players, Tulane, you got quarterback Jake Retzlaff, dual threat guy. They're going to go as he goes, right? I mean, he's kind of like he's the man. I mean, like if he can limit the turnovers and be explosive, running and throwing, maybe they have a shot. His problem has been consistency. He's been inconsistent throughout the entirety of the year. Running backs, you got Javin Gordon, Jamari McClure for Tulane. The number one receiver, Shaz Preston, former Alabama player. Ole Miss on defense. Defensive end, you got Prince Will, Uman-Milan. Linebackers, you got TJ Daugherty and Suntarine Perkins, and safety Wydett Williams. Wydett Williams coming over from UL Monroe a year ago, playing really well for Ole Miss, and I really like Suntarine Perkins. He's a linebacker that can, he's good in run support, good against the pass, and he can rush the quarterback too. Man, I just don't. Unfortunately, I don't see a way Tulane's gonna. I don't believe Tulane's gonna be able to keep this game competitive. I just don't see their offense being able to score enough points to do that.
So unlike Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin won't be there, Tulane, obviously they're going to lose John Summerall. He took that position at Florida, but he's going to stay with the team through the end of the season. To your point, Justice, when it comes to the spread, Ole Miss favored by 17.5, over under set at 56.5. I think I would feel comfortable taking the over 56.5. I feel pretty good about that. But I'll probably stay away from the spread. I do anticipate Ole Miss to win this, but I think it might be closer than you're letting on.
If I'm betting, I'm taking Ole Miss to 17.5. I don't know that they're going to win by 35, but I have a hard time seeing Tulane not losing by at least 21. I just don't. The offense, the Tulane offense, scares me. I think the defense can be up for the challenge, but I just don't know that the Tulane offense is going to be able to score many points.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next playoff game. We've got number 12 JMU and number 5 Oregon at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. They're on Saturday, December 20th. Oregon, you got quarterback Dante Moore. Running back, they've been pretty good running the ball. It's a pretty stacked room. You got Noah Whittington, you got Jordan Davis, Kenyon Sadiq at tight end, fan favorite, I think, and then Malik Benson. Evan Stewart has been out. Word is that he was practicing today, so we'll see what that turns out to be. But this JMU defense has been pretty good all season long. Shayer West off the edge, Emmanuel Bush at D tackle, Trent Hendricks at linebacker, and then a couple of pretty good safeties, Jacob Thomas and Tyler Brown. But what do the numbers say?
I mean, the JMU defense has been outstanding this year. Number 2 against the rush, only giving up 76.2 yards per game. 12th against the pass, 171.5 yards per game. I know at one point, I know they did, at least in one game, they had a streak of not giving up more than 300 yards per game in offense. Stout defense, but they haven't played anyone close to the talent of Oregon, right? They played Louisville. We saw Louisville beat them. But I got to tell you, I think if JM, first of all, if Alonzo Barnett III was fully healthy and they didn't do that stupid rotation with him and Sluka in that Louisville game, I think they win that game. I mean, they were leading at halftime. Isaac Brown busted a long run to kind of give Louisville the win. A lot of people looked at that game and say, well, they lost to Louisville. I mean, they play Louisville pretty tough. I think this game is going to be better than the average college football fan will think, because I mean, this JMU defense is good. Oregon on offense, 14th ranked in the rush, 218.4 yards per game, 49th passing, and the 9th ranked scoring offense. Another injury we didn't talk about, DeCorian Moore, who's been out for a while. I think he does play in this game, but I don't think he's going to be like a starter and see a full set of snaps. I do think, I mean, maybe if the game's closer than we think, we'll still get more snaps. But I think what Oregon would like to do is kind of get him out there, get him back in the flow of things in preparation for their next round.
I got a question for you, Justice. You being an ODU fan, you have a certain place in your heart for JMU. It's I think a darker place in your heart, but you've got a place in there. You had said something very early on in the season. You said Kurt Cinetti took a player from Old Dominion, to maybe get some intel.
That was Grant Wilson.
Do you think Kurt Cinetti gives any sort of information to James Madison in order to help James Madison beat Oregon, because he thinks in some sort of world he would rather face JMU than Oregon later on in the playoffs? Or he's like, hey, Big Ten Alliance, let's have all the Big Ten teams, make it.
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, if you give this JMU defense, who's already pretty talented, like a blueprint, I mean, obviously they're going to watch tape and stuff.
All right, they watched the Indiana game, right? And get some intel there. And I'm sure, a lot of Indiana players played at JMU, so I'm sure those guys still have relationships. I'm sure they're talking. But the head coach, I don't know. I'm just saying, tinfoil it's interesting thought for sure.
Yeah, especially if it maybe I will definitely, that'll creep into my head, especially if it's first half and it's close. It's like, all right.
I think moving over to the JMU offense, Oregon defense, I think the key to this game is the JMU offense. Can they get going early enough and score points to kind of stay with the Oregon offense? Because kind of what we've seen is the JMU offense kind of start really slow in the first half, and then kind of break things open in the second half as that JMU defense kind of works on the opposing offense kind of wears them down a little bit. I think in this game, JMU is going to have to score points. JMU is best at the run. They're the 5th-ranked rushing offense, averaging 245.8 yards per game, 94th in the pass. Oregon on defense, 20th. Then they're pretty stout as well. 20th against the run, 107.3 yards per game. 3rd against the pass, and the 8th scoring defense, only giving up 14.8 points per game. Key players: Alonzo Barnett the third at quarterback, running back Wayne Knight. Wayne Knight he's a dude, man. He is a dude. He last week against Troy in the Sun Belt Championship game, I mean, he's the reason they won. Like, at least from an offensive standpoint. Sahir West had a phenomenal game for that JMU defense. But Wayne Knight, he is a dude. I don't think JMU has enough dudes on offense. I think defensively they do. Offensively, I just don't think they do. Wayne Knight not going to be able to, be a one-man wrecking crew. They're going to need some others to step up. Alonzo Barnett's that passing game's going to have to get going. They're not going to be able to simply rely on the rush and rely on Wayne Knight carrying that offense. Oregon on defense, the guys to know, defensive end, Mateo Ungalele. That is DJU's younger brother. Linebacker, Bryce Bocher, and safety, Dylan Thieneman. Mateo Ungalele and Dylan Thieneman, both two guys that are absolutely going to be drafted here coming in April. At the end of the day, I think this game is closer than we're expecting, but I do give the edge to Oregon just simply because I don't think the JMU offense is going to be able to score enough points. They just don't. Other than Wayne Knight, Alonzo Barnett III is a good quarterback, but I just don't know that they have enough playmakers on this offensive unit to keep up with Oregon at the end of the
Another
day.
thing just to note, Oregon coaching changes. You got both coordinators taking jobs elsewhere, but they're going to remain with the Ducks through their playoff run. And then you got Bob Chesney there for James Madison, who took the UCLA job, but will remain with the team through the end of the season here. So, well, let's move on over to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl on Monday, December 22nd, 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got Washington State at Utah, or not really at Utah State, but Washington State versus Utah State. Utah State favored by 3 points. Over under set at 52.5. I'll take Utah State in the points. You don't have that hook there, which is kind of nice. But Washington State hasn't been super, super great all year. On offense, as long as you got Bryson Barnes and Miles Davis and Javen Jacobs, that two-headed monster, I think Brady Boyd will probably have a bigger game with Braden Pagan. Assuming he's out, he's in the transfer portal after coming in from, I think it was UCLA. I think it was. But what do we got for stats?
Utah State 54th ranked rushing offense, 46th passing offense. Washington State defense 39th against the run, 13th against the pass. I think the key, as we saw Washington State play JMU, is the lines, right? Both the offensive line and the defensive line for Washington State's pretty stout. So is the Utah State offensive line up for the challenge? The Washington State defensive players to know on the edge, you got Isaac Terrell, linebacker Parker McKenna, and safety Tucker Large. I tend to agree with you. I think Utah State offense is just going to be able to score some points. I think the Utah State offensive line, for the most part, will be able to hold their own against the defense of Washington State, and it's just going to be too much Utah State Aggie offense. Too many points. Washington State's just not built to score a lot of points, right? They're They want to run the ball, play smash mouth, play good defense, and I think this Utah State offense is going to be too much for them.
And when we switch sides of the ball here, like Utah State, they lay the lumber when they hit. When you look at the stats, and Justice will go through that here shortly, there's nothing that's like eye popping. But it's like when you get hit, you got hit, and it's a little bit tougher to get up each time. And if they do that each hit at Boise State, it's going to be cold. Those hits are going to hurt a little bit more. But let's run through the stats here.
Washington State offense, like we said, it's nothing great. 114th rushing offense, 100th passing offense, 110th scoring offense. Just nothing to get too excited about Washington State. But the players to know on offense, you got quarterback Zeviak House, running back Kirby Voorhees, and wide receiver Josh Meredith. Their other top receiver, Tony Freeman's in the portal, so I'd assume he's probably not playing. Utah State on defense, they're ranked 100th against the rush, 117th against the pass. Players to know for Utah State on the defensive line: William Holmes, linebacker John Miller. That dude's a beast. He's probably their best player on defense. And then safeties, both hard-hitting safeties to Luke's point, Ike Larson and Brevin Hamlin. They're good in run support. They make those receivers pay if they come over the middle. I don't know as much else to say. There's not a lot to get excited about for this Washington State offense. I think the Utah State offense is gonna put up too many points and win the game. And I think you take Utah State and the points.
All right, let's. Another thing that we got to mention: Washington State coaching changes. Jimmy Rogers took that position there at Iowa State, so he's not going to be with the team for the bowl game, which means coaching movement probably with him. But defensive coordinator Jesse Bobbitt will serve as the interim head coach. Let's move on over to the Bushes. Boca Raton Bowl on Tuesday, December 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got Toledo against Louisville. Key players in this one: Miller Moss for Louisville, Isaac Brown, Kewan Brown for running backs, Duke Watson. They've got a nice trio there. Colin Lacey at wide receiver. Toledo, defensive end, Malachi Davis is in the transfer portal. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. Did they talk about that?
I haven't heard. I don't know.
Will he play? Will he not? You've got defensive tackle Martez Poinier, and then we think I don't know if I want to say we think the world of this guy, but he's going to be a good NFL defensive back. Toledo just seems to have all of them, but safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren, and then safety Braden Alls.
Friend of the program, Braden Alls.
Yeah. So
he's the next. They had MACtion Hook last year, Emmanuel McNeil Warren this year, and Braden Alls is the guy to know next year for the NFL draft for Toledo. But Louisville on offense, 65th rushing offense, 162.6 yards per game, 67th passing offense, 226.3 yards per game. Toledo defense, though, pretty stout. They're ranked 8th against the rush, 8th against the pass, and they're the 4th best defense in terms of scoring defense, only giving up 12.2 points per game. Toledo, one of the most talented teams in the MAC. This defense is legit. If you listen to our show throughout the year, you know how I feel about Tucker Gleason. He's kind of the Achilles heel of this team, right? He's his inconsistent play. He looks lights out one week and then looks god awful the next. But nonetheless, this defense is pretty legit. Knowing what this JMU defense did against Louisville. And that's when Louisville had Chris Bell. No Chris Bell for this Louisville offense. He's out with injury. He's been out the last couple weeks. But I mean, I think the Toledo defense is right there with JMU. So I think the Toledo defense can hold their own. The big question mark will be which version of Tucker Gleason they get.
But I mean, Tucker Gleason is going to be a player to watch, and he's going to be handing the ball off to Chip Trainum, who's got power 4 abilities in his blood. Junior Vandeross III, he's great wide receiver, and then Trayvon Rudolph. I don't know if he's really made as big of an impact this year as maybe they kind of would like, but he's definitely a good second option there. But then on Louisville, you got defensive end Clev Lubin, and then linebacker TJ Quinn and Stanquan Clark there at linebacker.
I do expect Stanquan to play. Stanquan did not play in their last game. The reason he didn't play was he had already played in 4 games. So they purposely didn't play him to preserve a year of eligibility. However, the bowl game doesn't count against that. So I do expect Stanquan Clark to play for Louisville.
And honestly, so you got I know you haven't gone through the numbers yet, but I think this is going to be a pretty good game. Over under set at 44.5. Louisville favored by 7.5. I think I'd feel more comfortable taking the over 44.5, even though the defenses are pretty good. But I don't know, if you're getting that hook, it might be tempted to take. It's a lot on Tucker, but I might be tempted to take the 7.5.
Yeah, I can't bet anything with Tucker Gleason involved. He's too inconsistent. I mean, we look at the numbers though. Toledo's 44th ranked rushing offense, 53rd passing offense. Louisville on defense, not too bad. 22nd against the rush, 28th against the pass. But this game's going to come down to Tucker Gleason. Like, which version do you get? Like, if you get the good version, this is a winnable game for Toledo. If you get the bad version of Tucker Gleason, this game could be a blowout for Louisville. And so for that reason, like for me, it's just from a betting perspective, something that I'm going to avoid.
And then Toledo, coaching change. Jason Candle took the job there at UConn. So quarterback coach Robert Weiner will serve as the interim head coach there. So let's move on over to the New Orleans Bowl, one of Justice's favorites, I think. I think this is one of the ones that he likes. Tuesday, December 22nd, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We've got Western Kentucky versus Southern Miss. We're going to have Braylon Braxton, Jeffrey Pittman, Elijah Metcalf, Carl Chester on offense there for the Golden Eagles. And Western Kentucky, you're going to have linebacker Jalen Wester, Jalen Lewis at safety there, and then at corner Nazir Ward as some names to watch there. Southern Miss, Blake Buster, they're the left tackle. He was injured, so one to watch if they don't have their left tackle there. Obviously, coaching change. Charles Huff took that job there at Memphis, which, what's that mean for players?
Like everybody says they're playing. Like, that's what they've said.
That's what they say. You got offensive coordinator, like we talked about in the news and notes. Blake Anderson's going to serve as the interim coach, and he's also going to take over for that the head coaching position next year. For this Western Kentucky defense, you've got cornerback Dylan Flowers. He played, I think, a normal amount of snaps for somebody who's like 500-600. He played close to 400 snaps. He's in the transfer portal. But what do we got here for stats wise?
Southern Miss offense, 88th rushing offense, 26th passing offense. Western Kentucky, 110th against the rush, 68th against the pass. I expect a good game. I think both of these teams are going to have, for the most part, their full complement of players. Western Kentucky is favored by 4. I think the game could be closer than that. I think it could be a field goal game. And so because of that, I probably would lean towards betting on Southern Miss. Moving over to the Western Kentucky offense, man, this team just played differently, right? Once Rodney Tisdale Jr. took over. But looking at the numbers, Western Kentucky on offense, not as you might expect, they like to throw the ball. That's what they do. 92nd rushing offense, but 24th passing offense, averaging 272.6 yards per game. Southern Miss defense, 104th ranked rushing defense, 78th passing defense. The Southern Miss defense is like kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, confusing, right? Because there's a lot of talent on that defense. They don't necessarily play up to the level of talent that they do have.
They like Javon Tapp, if you haven't got a chance to watch him on defense there for the Golden Eagles, he's tremendous. Broderius Lewis, great linebacking duo of Chris Jones and Michael Montgomery, and then Josh Moten. Other than the play that he got burned on in one of their last games of the season, he's pretty good cornerback there. You talked about Rodney Tisdale there, quarterback for Western Kentucky. I anticipate Western Kentucky to win this game. Southern Miss, they just were going the wrong way.
They've lost 3 in a row at the end of the year.
So it's like, can you turn it around? Like, what does that fan base think of if you could win a bowl game? I think we talked about at the end of the season. You're like, hey, they were going down. I was like, hey, that's a pretty good year based off of where they were, and Charles Huff left this program in a little bit on the surface level in a better spot than they were. But if they lose the bowl game, I think it's going to be real deflating for that fan base and everything is kind of where they started.
One thing the Southern Miss defense is adept at is interceptions, man. Those defensive backs. They might lead all of college football in interceptions. If not, they're one of the top teams, intercepting the ball. So that'd be a key for them. While the defense hasn't necessarily played up to snuff in terms of the yardage they're giving up, they have produced a lot of turnovers on the year.
Well, you know who the Golden Eagles would love to face because they're good at getting interceptions? They would love to have an appearance in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl on Tuesday, December 22nd at 9 p.m. Eastern, because Parker Navarro been throwing a lot of interceptions. He's been fumbling the ball a lot. We've got UNLV against Ohio. Parker Navarro, I talked about there for the quarterbacks. Saya Bengura, our MAC Offensive Player of the Year. Great on the ground. Chase Hendricks. Send out an SOS because he was kind of lost there at the end of the year. Put him on a milk carton. Hopefully, we can find him in this one. UNLV defense, you've got Chief Broders on the edge, Marcel McDuffie at linebacker, and then a pretty good defensive secondary in Aramis Brown and LaTerrence Welch at corners with Jake Pope at safety. I just remember in that Mountain West Championship game, LaTerrence Welch, I understand why he played defense. Granted, he's had some interceptions, but one just went through his hands there in the end zone. But anyways, coaching, I don't even want to say coaching changes. It's coaching. I don't know what's going on. We still don't have any idea what's going on with head coach Brian Smith as he's on leave, leaving DC John Hauser to take over as the interim for this game. So what do the numbers say, Justice?
Ohio, 18th ranked rushing offense with behind, Say Bangura and Parker Navarro, averaging 203.1 yards per game. To your point, the passing offense, not so great, and hasn't been really ugly the last few weeks of the year. Ranked 106. However, UNLV defense, not good. 101 against the rush, 117th against the pass. The one thing they do well is sack the quarterback, though. They are the 36th best team in that, averaging 2.23 sacks per game, whereas the offensive line for Ohio is the 80th ranked sacks allowed offensive line unit, giving up 2 sacks per game. Man, like you talk about someone that had like a serious regression, Parker Navarro. He had such a progression last year. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, he was on fire at the end of last year. He could do no wrong passing or rushing, and this year it's just been ugly. It has been ugly. He's been okay running the ball, but man, the passing has been ugly. Chase Hendricks clearly his favorite target. Yeah, you got to think they're going to lean heavily though on Save Bangura. That's kind of what they've done all year. I don't know.
You know what UNLV should do? They should lean heavily on their running back, Jaden Thomas, because that's something that this team didn't really do. Give him a whole bunch, but I'm hoping he has a breakout game. Jaden Jet Thomas there at running back. You've got Anthony Calandria at quarterback, Jaden Bradley at wide receiver, and on the defensive side for Ohio, you got Charlie Christopher at linebacker with Michael Molnar, and then Tank Pearson there at cornerback. In general, I think I like UNLV to win this game pretty handily because I think they're going to be given multiple opportunities by way of turnovers, by way of Parker Navarro. But this UNLV offense, not too shabby.
Yeah, pretty good. 9th ranked rushing offense, 228.8 yards per game. And that's with them not giving the ball to Jaden Jet Thomas a lot. Anthony Calandria, dual threat guy. He's played phenomenal for him this year, other than against Boise State. 36 passing offense. Ohio on the defensive side, 65th against the rush, 51st against the pass. I just think the UNLV offense is going to be too much. I don't see this Ohio defense really slowing them down. I'd like to see Jet Thomas get 20 touches in the game. However, they haven't done it all year. We were preaching this way back in week 0, right? When UNLV almost lost the game to, I forget who it was now. It was an FCS opponent. And we were preaching way
Idaho?
back then. What's that?
Was it Idaho?
No, it was, I forget who it was. It wasn't Idaho, I don't think. But man, back then we were preaching, there you go, Idaho State, Brett said. We were preaching, hey, stop the quarterback rotation between Calandria and Orji, make Calandria the quarterback. Well, injury took care of that, and Calandria was the quarterback. The other thing we preached was you got to give Jet Thomas 20 plus touches a game, and they just don't do it. The dude's electric, man. If you haven't seen him play, he's electric with the ball in his hands. I think the UNLV offense is going to be too much. Ohio, they would need Parker Navarro to play like he did at the end of last year, and quite frankly, he hasn't done that all year. So I don't have much hope that he's going to do it in this game. I agree with you. Give me UNLV laying. I think what you said, 4.5 points. So
yep,
I think the UNLV offense is gonna rule the day for the Rebels.
All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. On X, give us a follow. And if you're listening to us on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Again, we're so grateful for the immense amount of support that we have received, and sincerely thank each and every one of you who have reached out, players, coaches, staff members, just fans of the podcast. We appreciate everybody. And be sure to join us next week as we discuss what happened in those 11 bowl games that we just covered, plus the Jacksonville State and Troy game. And then we will tackle the next 10 bowl game previews and get you through December 30th, I think is what we got there on the docket. And as always, bring you up to date on all the latest news and happenings in the world of G5 college football. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.